Welcome to Fireside Nets. I am your host, Spen Harris. I am joined by my co-host and little brother, Nicky Sticks, who is holding up his Sean Kilpatrick bobblehead. Wow, shout out to Sean Kilpatrick, former Nets legend. And we are actually hosting a podcast together for the first time since I want to say maybe July. Nick, how are you?
It's my men's league championship ring. I'm doing well. You know, I got that Sean Kilpatrick bobblehead at Sean Kilpatrick bobblehead night a few years ago. I actually liked watching Sean Kilpatrick. He was like a fun player on a bad team, almost like a Dinwiddie, in the bubble, who actually provided a spark every now and then. But I'm good. Listen, the season's about to start. Nobody gives a shit until the season's in motion and we could actually comment on how players are doing. Nobody whacks it to the preseason like you do, Spen Harris.
I do love the preseason. I'm a fan. But before we get into everything Nets related, I did just want to briefly apologize to our listeners out there. I know that the schedule for this podcast has been horrible the last few months. I think we put out 2 episodes in 3 months. One was with CJ Holmes, our Nets insider. Another, I believe, was Nick and I. And I know a lot of you guys have forgotten about old Fireside Nets, but I want to let you know that our fandom for this team has not changed. It has not withered. We still follow the Nets religiously. I still watched a good amount of preseason basketball, and I'm still as big of a Nets fan as I've ever been. So although I've failed all of you, Nick and I have over the past few months, for that, I'm sorry. But I am back. Nick is here today, and we're going to have an episode every week from now on, okay? Whether Nick's my co-host or I'm riding solo or I'm joined by CJ Holmes or we have former Net Aaron Williams on the show or if Sean Kilpatrick wants to come on, we are going to continue putting out Fireside Nets content. This is the 201st episode of this podcast, Nick. Could you believe that? We've been doing this for so long. You actually missed episode 200. CJ Holmes was on that one. But this is the 201st episode of Fireside Nets. We are not going anywhere. We are back, and we are here to stay.
Well, the symbolism of 201, I mean, that's the area code of Bergen County, if I'm not mistaken, where we grew up. I don't know if it extends further. Is it like North Jersey 201? But
yeah, it's not the specific town we grew up in. 201 is pretty Bergen County relative.
Yeah, but I'm saying I know people in Central and South Jersey with different area codes. There's probably a few. But I'm honored to be here. I hope on the 200th episode with CJ Holmes, you said, yo, Holmes to Bel Air, but I doubt those words were uttered. You weren't thinking, clever. I do, and that's what I bring to the podcast. So excited to be here, Spen. Excited for you to tell me what's going on with the Brooklyn Nets, because all I know is that this season, it all starts happening.
What starts happening, Nick?
I don't know. Something's going to happen. I don't know for good or bad or better or worse, but it'll be interesting to see, and we'll be having fun no matter what. All right, let's get into it. Say something.
Sure.
Could we give a shout out to the New York Liberty?
Yes. Shout out to the New York Liberty for winning the WNBA championship. Shout out
in Barclays. This was this last night? Yeah.
No, 2 nights ago. 2 nights ago.
Sorry. Sunday night, when Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu were horrible
Jonquel Jones
from the field.
Oh, you're talking about, yeah.
And they still managed to pull off the win against the Minnesota Lynx. I also want to say that's their first win in WNBA history, which I believe is 28 years ago, 96 or 97. So congrats to New York Liberty, repping Barclays Center, where the Nets will be starting their season shortly.
Yeah, the Nets should follow in the Liberty's footsteps. I mean, they brought a championship to this city. Shout out to the Liberty. I'm glad you brought them up. I watched that game. It doesn't matter that Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart struggled. They made big shots when it mattered. Ionescu hit the big 3. Stewart hit the 2 free throws to send it into overtime. And it's the heart of a champion that prevails. And the Liberty showed you that. So I give everyone in that organization and all their fans, including us, a ton of props. I'm glad they won the championship. Now, switching gears over to the Brooklyn Nets. 3 preseason games, Clippers, Wizards, 76ers. We're not going to go over them individually. I want to talk about them as a whole. And I'm going to just sort of give you my comments and we can talk about it. The first thing I noticed, I need to figure out, or I guess not me, Coach Fernandez needs to figure out how to get Noah Clowney more involved in this team. That is the one guy I did not see a ton of in the preseason. He was our first round pick from a year ago out of Alabama. And he's someone who I drafted in the last round of my fantasy basketball league because I know he's got a ton of upside. He should see a lot of time, but he is a guy that I would like the Nets to sort of figure out what they want to do with him this year moving forward.
Which is interesting because not only has Clowney shown a lot of potential, but they had spoken. I think Clowney addressed this specifically, how him and Claxton see themselves working together down low. So you'd think you'd see that combination a little more or just to like feel out those two kind of working in tandem. But I like Clowney, and if him and Claxton could spread the floor, I mean, Clowney has a little more range than Claxton, right? So Clowney can kind of float to the perimeter a little more often. But I would love to see them work together. So I'm interested and curious as to why that wasn't more prevalent in the preseason.
Well, so the thing you got to understand, the Nets have a ton of forwards that are probably not going to be on the team by the trade deadline.
Well, Dayron's injured.
Not even Dayron. You have Cam Johnson, who kind of stretches to the 4. You have Dorian Finney-Smith. You have Ben Simmons, who's going to play a little bit with Dennis Schroeder. So there's a lot of guys that don't play those guard positions, right? Because Cam Thomas is going to be in that 2 guard to start. And unfortunately, Noah Clowney's the odd man out. You're going to play Clowney over DFS or Cam Johnson. You're trying to trade those guys. They need to see the court.
So you're saying they want to hold on to Clowney, which is why they're not playing him because they know he's going to be on the team, an important player.
I think that you'll see more Clowney Claxton front court in the second half of the year. That's what I'm saying.
What do you think their names combined would be? Claxy?
No, I think Clown Axton.
That's cool.
Clown Axton. All right, moving on. Cam Thomas, we kind of expected him to dominate in the preseason. That was not the case. He did not seem to take over games like we've been accustomed to. I don't think that's going to be the case in the regular season. I do see him scoring 25 points per game or more, but a little concerning that he hasn't shown that, hey, this is my team, right? Because Mikal Bridges is gone. It was his team last year. Yes, he struggled mightily in the second half of the year, but all doors are open for Cam Thomas to just take over and really be the main offensive force on this team. And I just didn't see it enough in the preseason.
And you think that's why they declined to extend the rookie contract?
I don't think that's why. And we'll get into that in a bit. I think there's a lot more there, but no, it just surprised me.
Are you saying that from a talent perspective or from like a leadership perspective?
From a leadership perspective.
The dude's 23 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, rarely do you have like an SGA that can not only come onto a team with a shit ton of talent, but also be the voice of reason and a leader. Like, what was I just reading about the Nuggets, right? Because Westbrook just went to the Nuggets, and they're saying even Jokic and Jamal Murray, 2 all-stars, 2 champions, are not leaders. They're not, they show leadership through their playing and their ability, and they set the tone on the court. But they said the Nuggets kind of all of a sudden have now a leadership voice in Russell Westbrook, who's in his mid-30s, who's playing on a veteran minimum contract or close to it, and has bounced around to 3 or 4 teams in the last 3 or 4 years. So I cannot expect Cam Thomas. I mean, I'd be very impressed and happy if he did kind of take over that role, but are you telling me you're disappointed in what you're seeing from Cam Thomas?
Yes, that's what I'm telling you.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I think that's a little bit. Can the dude, what did he average 22.5 points last year? Is that not enough for you? He also has to like take over the team.
It's just a preseason. I'm not super worried about it, but this is a guy, and okay, we can get into the Nets deciding not to extend him. He will be a restricted free agent in 2025. They can pay him the most money next season. That's how it works. I don't know. He's had a different role on this team in every single one of his seasons. And I think the Nets still want to see him prove himself when he is the lead ball handler, if he can be that playmaker, if he can make decisions, So I think they want to understand if there is another element to his game before committing all that money to him.
I mean, if you're going to be the guy, he did jump from 23 to 24. He went from 10.6 points a game to 22.5 points a game. He consistently shoots 44% from the field. But the number that stands out to me the most is 1.5 to 3 assists. You want a guy to be a leader on your team. It's one thing to be a fantastic scorer. It's another thing to make the players around you better. So for me, I would love to see Cam Thomas pass more. I would love to see Cam Thomas create for Claxton, create for Clowney, create for Cam Johnson. That to me is more of a telltale sign of growth and maturity and potential, than being vocal or taking over or becoming that leader. I think that's where his game needs to elevate more. And, as for the rookie contract, looking into it, I could see the Nets wanting to see more. I could see the Nets wanting to jump the gun, especially if they're in a rebuild mode right now. What's the last thing you want to do in a rebuild is throw everybody contracts ASAP, get them signed on when you're still trying to move pieces around and decide who your guys are going to be. So I don't know. I think you're blaming Cam too much and not putting enough credit on the organization for trying to move around the pieces and see what works.
All right.
We're in strategy mode, man. Like everyone is in this back room. They're putting their heads together. It's a brainstorm. They're about to Jimmy Neutron brain blast all over your face over here.
Jimmy Neutron brain blast all over my face. Is that what you said?
Remember in Jimmy Neutron, brain blast.
It's been a while since I caught a few episodes of old James Neutron. All right. Another thing I noticed in the preseason, Jalen Wilson. He really carried that momentum over from an excellent summer league. My guy was the summer league MVP, and he has continued to make plays and look really good in a Nets uniform. Shout out to Jalen Wilson, the Kansas graduate. He is someone who I think is really going to continue to improve and just get better. His 3-point ball is looking good. He moves well without the ball. He's a tenacious defender. Just really enthused with his play in the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, and everything I'm reading and listening to is saying Wilson, Clowney, and Zaire Williams are kind of like the guys they're looking to develop and could all have bigger roles, which also goes back to Cam Thomas. If these 3 young guys who are all the same age or younger than Cam Thomas start to develop and start to advance past him and be more critical players on this team, what does that mean for Cam Thomas's role? Which raises the question, is it a Cam Thomas problem where his skill set doesn't really blend in with a lot of guys? I don't know. That's an open-ended question, but I love Jalen Wilson, and I like what these young guys show.
Back to Cam Thomas. I saw someone write that, he could very well be the scoring leader in the NBA this year. And I agreed with that comment on Twitter. And then someone else was like, if you think that Cam Thomas is going to lead us to wins, you're crazy. No one said anything about the Nets winning games. He could be the best player on the worst team. But the question is, can he be an important piece on a winning team? That has remained to be seen. I think Cam Thomas's floor is like a Jordan Clarkson off the bench, right, in Utah, where Clarkson can get you 20, 25 any given night, but you do not depend on Jordan Clarkson to win you ball games. He could be that 6th man. I think that is Cam Thomas's floor. We don't really know what his ceiling is yet. And I think that's what Sean Marks and Coach Fernandez have to figure out this year is what is his ceiling. Also, I'd like him to get a new catchphrase. For a while, they asked Cam Thomas in January of 2023 why he never smiles, and he said, "Ain't shit funny." And that was his catchphrase for a little bit. Get a new catchphrase. Do you have any ideas on what his new catchphrase should be this season?
Are you saying "ain't shit funny" like AIN?
Yeah, that was his response.
I thought he said "ain't shit funny."
No, ain't. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, if you want me to just brainstorm off the top of my head, like camcorder, that's a cool, get the camcorder rolling. Then he does one of these with like the rolling film.
Who is this is so random.
Thank you, Cam.
Wham, bam. Thank you, Cam. What was the book about the photographer, the female photographer, Cam Jansen or something?
Oh, Cam
yeah. I don't think that was it, but you know what I'm talking about.
She had a photographic memory. She could just close her eyes, and she could solve a crime.
Maybe that could be his catchphrase. Like he just clicks.
That's a deeper cut than Brain Blast. You're like, oh, I don't remember that from Jimmy Neutron. And then you bring up Cam Jansen, who like maybe 1% of the population read, and not even 0.01% of listeners of this podcast.
Yo, it was Cam Jansen. Cam Jansen is an amateur detective with a photographic memory.
Yes, I remember.
And students in grades 1 to 4 will love this. I don't know, man. I don't know. Cam Thomas can work in the Cam Jansen angle. I got some ideas for his catchphrase, but I'll wait until the regular season to share them. All right. You mentioned Zaire Williams. I really liked what I saw from him. I think he's a really nice pickup. He's still 23 years old, very raw, energetic, defensive-minded player. He has some underrated offensive skill. He needs to work on his three-point shot, but he is a really nice addition. He's 6'9", so he has height. He can play the 4 a little bit. He can play the 3. I'm really excited to see him get some minutes in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, 10th overall pick in 2021 out of Stanford. Went to Brooklyn from Memphis. Found some cool quotes from him on how excited he is this season. He said, just playing my heart out on the court, man, and trusting my work. Honestly, I'm so versatile. I just feel like you just throw me out there and I'll just give you my all. And then he talked about, to paraphrase, it's awesome. He loves Barclays. You know, he implied this is kind of a second chance for him. He's feeling comfortable in the role. And that's just a positive sign. You know, from a fan perspective, rebuilding years are always tough. But for the players, it's a huge opportunity for them to come on a struggling team and try to be the standout guy. So whereas am I insanely hopeful and excited about winning games? No, but I could be insanely hopeful and excited about developing great players and seeing young talent shine and these guys getting an opportunity they never thought they'd have. So maybe we end up being surprised with a guy like Williams or a guy like Clowney or Cam Thomas, like you said, hitting that ceiling. That's a cool thing that could happen.
The Ben Simmons experience continues. He had one solid game, and then he looked pedestrian in another game, and I don't think he played the third game. So once again, we have no idea what we're going to get from Ben Simmons this year. And you brought up an article that you had read about the Nets potentially. So I actually saw that he might be a buyout candidate this year, which I can't tell you how much that would suck if we traded away James Harden for this dude and he just becomes a player we buy out to go find another role in the NBA. That would be horrible. I just can't think of something worse than that.
Yeah, I'm reading this Sporting News article that came out 3 hours ago. It's Tuesday, October 22nd. If the Bulls can create a Levine buyer out of Brooklyn, swapping Simmons and Levine, from a money standpoint, it becomes a piece of cake. You just need Brooklyn to toss in Jalen Wilson's $1.8 million contract alongside Simmons.
No deal. No deal.
I know. So, I mean, nobody wants Simmons, the player, anymore. Sam Quinn at CBS Sports said, but it could help the Nets in a matter of ways getting rid of his contract. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to throw Wilson in there either. This article is saying that this would be good for us because Levine's a much more viable player than Simmons. I don't disagree that Levine at this moment would have a bigger impact on Simmons. I mean, Levine is a much more dominant scorer and actually plays and stays somewhat healthy. Levine's been injured in the past, but I don't think Levine moves the needle for me. I don't think he's a guy to build around. I mean, you look at the Bulls that built their trio at one point of Levine, DeRozan, and Vucevic, and on paper, 3 solid players, and they couldn't even freaking get out of the East. So, yeah, that's tough.
Zach LaVine's going to be 30 years old in March. Okay, you're in a rebuild. It does not make any sense. You know, the one thing I'll kind of shit on the Nets for, and I'll be real about this, there's no reason to play Dennis Schroeder and Ben Simmons together. I don't know why they're both on the roster. That is kind of a stupid move on my part. It made a little bit more sense when Spencer Dinwiddie was here because Spencer Dinwiddie can play off the ball a little bit, but Ben Simmons and Dennis Schroeder are 2 players that need the ball in their hands to excel. So for me, I just, that roster construction, like you're telling me you're not going to win games if you play those 2 guys together. You're just not.
Yeah, and I prefer Schroeder, and I like Schroeder. I also think Schroeder's a better leader than Ben Simmons. I think people respect Schroeder as a veteran. He's had a lot of experience and honestly great off the bench. I see a world where Schroeder provides a lot for this team, but I do think it would be coming off the bench, ideally on a better team.
I think right now you mentioned the leaders. I think the leaders on this team, and I think it's ranked in this order. I would say Dennis Schroeder, Cam Thomas, Nick Claxton. Those are the top three leaders. And then 4 and 5, I would put Cam Johnson and then Ben Simmons as like your fifth leader, right?
I mean,
So
how could you follow a player that doesn't play?
The guys on the team respect him. I do think he still garners respect. I mean, he's still a veteran. He's still been in the league for a while. Like everyone else on the team is young as shit, right? The only other guy who's a veteran is Dorian Finney-Smith. So if you want to say he's tied, but your three leaders are Cam Thomas, Dennis Schroeder, because he's the point guard, and Nick Claxton. Those are the three vets who have been here. Cam Johnson is 4, and then Ben Simmons, Dorian Finney-Smith. I guess those 3 would be next in line. But yeah. And again, when your best players are 3 guys who combined have maybe 1 all-star. No, I don't know if Dennis Schroeder has ever been an all-star. The Nets don't have an all-star on this team, other than Ben Simmons.
I would be extremely surprised. If
I think you're right.
Was an all-star, but I think he,
yeah.
No, but he was a FIBA World Cup MVP in 2023. No, I mean, looking at his career, 14 points a game, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. He was always solid, but yeah, he was never really reaching that elite status. But I like your and just to make a point, you mentioned leaders. If you look on last year, obviously we lost Mikal Bridges to the Knicks. Even at that time when Mikal Bridges was the best player on the team, I didn't even really consider him the ideal leader. So it's kind of been a little bit of a musical chairs for who's going to take that role and really have be the voice for these guys to listen to and to follow. Maybe it doesn't help that Schroeder's German. It's probably hard to understand him. But, yeah, it wasn't even Mikal Bridges last year. So
he could speak English fluently. He's not speaking German to his teammates.
It's really hard to lead a team when you're speaking German.
The last thing I want to say about the preseason, I do love Jordi Fernandez's intensity. I really like him as a coach. There was a game where he was giving Noah Clowney a lot of shit about not being more physical against Andre Drummond. He talked about it after the game. And then Dennis Schroeder, I love this quote. So they asked Dennis Schroeder about playing for Jordi Fernandez, and he said this: I mean, European coaches are always crazy. I like that, though. I'm crazy, too, so it matches. That's the kind of guy you want to build a culture around, okay? He's not afraid to talk to a player a little bit harshly, be critical, but in a way that elicits a positive reaction. I think for me, a problem with Jacques Vaughn, he was too mild-mannered. I'm not saying I want a coach to jump around and go crazy, but I do want a coach to look upset when players mess up. Call me old-fashioned. I want to see that, that's something that I respect in a coach. And Jordi Fernandez, head coach of the Canadian FIBA team, he is used to physicality. He is used to getting on guys. So I like it. I like it.
If you see, I mean, this is apparent in all sports across the board. Coaches are trending younger and younger every year. I mean, I saw yesterday watching the Ravens game on Monday night, John Harbaugh, 62, is now the second oldest coach in the NFL after Andy Reid. So you look at going, and obviously Jacques Vaughn wasn't old, but you look at Jordi Fernandez, who's 41. You look at these coaches across the league in all sports. I almost feel these guys right now command more respect. They have more intensity. They have more energy. They relate to the players more. So I like these coaches going younger, trending younger. I feel they put themselves in a better position to gain the trust of the players. So I like to see that. I like Jordi Fernandez jumping around and having that intensity. I'm still confused as to how him and Dennis Schroeder communicated. He's Spanish, Schroeder's German. So that's just already a barrier there. But if they both speak the language of basketball, all can be accomplished.
You're an idiot. Okay, so let's get into the regular season. It starts tomorrow. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, the 23rd, it starts tonight. The Nets are in Atlanta against the Hawks. Start time 7:30 p.m. Tickets are as low as $16. What are you looking forward to in this game? What excites you? Talk to me.
I mean, dude, we're looking at the best couple weeks of professional sports. We have the NFL in full swing, about halfway through the season. You have the World Series in baseball between the LA Dodgers and the New York Yankees. Hockey started, which I don't give a shit about. But now you have basketball season, our favorite sport. This is also a blessing of a team in rebuild that the tickets are cheap. And I'm pumped to go back to Barclays because when you got Kyrie, Harden, and Durant on the same team, you're paying $150 for nosebleeds. You're telling me you're paying $18 for nosebleeds right now? I mean, that's a steal and a half.
That's in Atlanta.
Yeah. What's
Brooklyn? Brooklyn. Okay, so the first game in Brooklyn is against Milwaukee on Sunday. Tickets are as low as $41.
Okay. Atlanta's cheaper, a smaller market team. You're playing the Bucks. $40 is still pretty solid.
Check this out. The lowest ticket in Memphis for the Grizzlies game, that's our 5th game of the season, $2.
That's freaking crazy. Come on, Memphis, get your shit together.
We might have to go to Memphis for that one.
I'll tell you what, and this is why I love the start of any season and why it's always chaotic, and I think especially applies to like fantasy football, why it makes it so fun, because all of these players you never expected come out of the woodwork. I mean, you draft guys like Brian Thomas Jr. on the Jaguars, who's now like a top 20 receiver in the league. You know, J.K. Dobbins coming back from a torn ACL on the Ravens is now a top running back for the LA Chargers. So all these things happen, these second chance players, these rookie players, these veterans on a new team like Westbrook on the Nuggets. What's he now going to do? Is he going to be an impact player again, you know, after bouncing around all these years and kind of looking like he stinks? So I'm excited to watch a team tomorrow play a beatable team in the Atlanta Hawks, who are always kind of mid to low tier in the East in the playoff race. So I'm excited to see which players are going to step up. I'm excited to see who's going to be that vocal leader, who's going to set an example. And honestly, this is a test for Jordi Fernandez. What's his starting five? What's his rotation? Who is he taking a risk on? Who is he putting what player is he, you know, allowing to shoot, allowing to have that unlimited ability like Cam Thomas? Is he just going to be like free for all with a guy like Cam Thomas right now, which he usually does? So I'm excited to see the dynamic and just start to get a feel for this Brooklyn Nets team, which again has been completely flipped over and turned around, you know, for the 3rd or 4th year in a row.
Plus, it's a Dennis Schroeder revenge game.
Yeah, I don't think that's crossing anybody's mind.
Maybe it's crossing Dennis Schroeder's.
Yeah.
All right, first 5 games, let's predict the record. So the Nets are at the Hawks, at the Magic on Friday, home against Milwaukee on Sunday, home against Denver on Tuesday, away against Memphis on Wednesday. I will go first. I think the Nets will win against Atlanta, lose against Orlando, lose against Milwaukee, lose against Denver, lose against Memphis. I got them at 1-4.
Wow, I thought we were going to be the same. I would have all the same except beating Memphis and going 2-3.
Why do you have them beating Memphis?
Because Memphis is a mess.
Memphis has Ja back, no?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you think Ja comes back and they're automatically like a fantastic team? They got rid of
pretty good
Brooks. I just think when a player comes back, it's going to take a little bit. I mean, listen, Ja's incredible, but what other firepower do the Grizzlies really have?
Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah, I like those guys. They're good players.
Those 3 players are better than anyone on the Nets.
I mean, you haven't seen our guys play tomorrow in the freaking opening night. You might have Jalen Wilson drop 30, and then you're like, wait, Desmond Bane who?
By the way, you and me being as cheap as we are, I actually think I want to go to the game on Sunday the 3rd, home against Detroit. Tickets are as low as $9.
All right, I'm down.
Might have to go to that. All right, maybe a little double date action, your misses and my misses.
A little swinging, maybe.
No. Okay, Nets over-under wins. 19.5 is the line on DraftKings. Are you taking the over or the under? Last year, they won 32 games.
I'm going to take the over for the reason that you just have no idea right now who's going to step up. I think that 19.5 is assuming all of these rookies and all of these young guys are going to be extremely average, and I'm hoping 1 or 2 kind of breaks out of that and ends up being an above average player. I think, 19.5 is a bad season. So if we can hit that like 25 to 30 range and start getting on that rebuilding track, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go over, but I'm not super confident about it. Vegas understands that the Nets are actively trying to tank. I mean, the title of this episode is Let the Tankfest 2024-25 season begin. we know this team is trying to lose games, right? They're going to be a lottery team. They're going to have a chance at one of the top prospects. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I'm going to say over. I think it's going to be close. I think they win like 20 to 23 games this year. I really do.
Why wouldn't you cough instead of saying cough? Let the Tankfest, 2024-25 season begin.
I don't know. Why did you say you wanted to swing with my wife and your girlfriend?
I got to tell you about this weird dream I had.
Please don't. Let's talk after this.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, now can you tell me?
You don't want me to say it on here.
All right, maybe don't. Okay. So speaking of things we will not talk about until 2025, next year's draft class. I don't want to sit here week after week talking about Cooper Flagg and Ace Bailey and all these young studs that the Nets will potentially have a shot at next season in the draft. I will be watching Duke and I will be watching Rutgers every chance I get. There are a lot of names out there other than Ace Bailey and Cooper Flagg that I'll also be watching, but we're not going to sit here every single week and talk about these guys. Can we agree on that?
Agreed.
Are you going to be watching a lot of Duke and Rutgers this year?
Nah, I really only watch college ball when it gets to March Madness.
That's how I am with baseball, except I only watch it until it gets to the World Series. Okay. The other thing I don't want to talk about until December is trading our players. Can we please wait until 2025, or at least just wait till December to talk about trading Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Day'Ron Sharpe, Ben Simmons, whoever? Give him a month. Let me watch this abysmal Nets team for 1 month. Let's get to December 1st, and then we can talk about trading players and making moves and getting rid of any valuable asset that, say, a team like the Lakers or the Clippers or the 76ers or one of these teams will want in the future. Agreed?
Agreed.
All right. Okay. One more quick thing, a little bit of a Nets memory before we end the podcast. I saw a clip of Brian Scalabrine telling this amazing story. So for those who remember, Brian Scalabrine was a role player. He's probably the 8th or 9th guy for the Nets back in the day. He was a three-point specialist when he saw the court, which wasn't often. But this was a game in which Rodney Rogers, who Nets fans remember, he fouled out. Kenyon Martin had already fouled out, or he wasn't playing. And Lawrence Frank, the head coach at the time, he looked down the bench. He saw Scalabrine was the only guy left. In Scalabrine's mind, he's thinking, like, I got to play. Like, there's no one else here. And Lawrence Frank looked at Brian Scalabrine, and he just went, oh, fuck.
That's pretty funny. I like that.
That is the story. I love those classic Nets teams, man. I went to my cousin's birthday party the other day, and there was about 20 people there. Could you believe that 4 or 5 of the 20 people were Nets fans?
I love to see it, man. Everyone's a bandwagon Knicks fans. Everyone, as soon as the Nets went to Brooklyn from Jersey, became a Knicks fan. So you got to find the OGs, the true New Jersey Nets fans who were never going to waver and leave our squad.
I loved it, man. I loved it. Those classic names, right? Let's name them. Kerry Kittles, Lucius Harris, Keith Van Horn. Give me some.
Kenyon Martin, Jason Collins, Zoran Planinic, Josh Boone, Marcus Williams.
Hey, our most recurring guest of all time, Aaron the A-Train Williams.
Bojan Bogdanovic.
Okay, you're getting a little bit. I'm talking about
Boki Nakbar.
Boki Nakbar, another recurring guest. Cliff Robinson, R.I.P. Cliff Robinson. He was a New Jersey Net. You had Anthony Johnson, backup point guard to Jason Kidd, and then you had Jacques Vaughn, backup point guard to Jason Kidd.
Our goal this year is the last thing I'll say, which is our goal every year, is Spen has to somehow get Richard Jefferson on the pod.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that's a tall glass of water. Literally and figuratively, he is. I don't know if there's a Nets player outside of Vince Carter that has had more success. No, Richard Jefferson, I think, has had a little bit more success than Carter because he has the podcast in the broadcasting media realm. But yeah, let's go for it. Richard Jefferson, if you are listening, you got to come on Fireside Nets at least once. Talk to me and Nikki. or Nicky Sticks, I guess is his name now. I'm Spen Harris, aka Spenny in the Nets. Thanks to everyone for listening to another edition of Fireside Nets, episode 201. We will talk to you guys next week, and we'll actually have some regular season basketball to react to. So very exciting. Shout out to everybody, and go Nets.
Peace.